Okay, let's get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Brown University Master of Science and Technology Leadership webinar. My name is Pete Chomowicz. I'm the Program Director. And for the next half an hour or so, we're going to be chatting with two of our current students. So let me introduce you by reading their bio, and then we're going to get started with a conversation. We hope all of you joining us have questions, comments. Um, Please put them in the Q&A button. The chat feature is disabled, and we'll get to your questions in about 15 minutes or so. Okay. Oops. Shelley Asari is a vice president at JP Morgan Consumer Banking, where banking lines of business, which serves 60 million households in the United States. I don't imagine Shelley serves all 60 million, but I bet there's a big fraction of them. In her role, she's responsible for M&A integration and building product-based customer journeys. Additionally, she serves on JP Morgan's leadership panel as marketing and communications co-chair, Go Green Sustainability, Tech for Social Good coach, Generation Tech, and a youth program. So Shelley's certainly active in giving back to her community. Prior to joining JP Morgan, she worked at Big Four management consultancy in M&A and growth strategy. She's an engineer and MBA by training, lives in Chicago with her family, enjoys active lifestyle with power yoga and swimming. I like hot yoga personally, but power yoga, good for you. I do want to point out Shelley has an MBA. Many of our students in the MTL program likewise have MBAs before joining. We've done a webinar talking with all of them about how an MBA is a very complementary degree to the MTL. I'm happy to share that with all of you online. And our second guest, Drew Thurlow, is a partner at Mindset Music Tech. He's a former professional musician turned music executive, investor, strategist. He serves as an adjunct professor at the Berklee College of Music, teaching music technology and innovation, and is a founding partner at Mindset Music Tech Fund. Previously, he was Senior VP of A&R at Sony Music, with additional leadership roles at Pandora and Warner Music. His writing has appeared in Billboard and has sought after voice on the intersection of music, technology, and innovation. His first book, Machine Music, How AI is Transforming Music's Next Act, will be published by Routledge next year. And I want to get to talk about Drew's book in a moment. But before they do that, I saw this painting recently by American painter Alex Hall called Relativity. And the more I look at it, the more I'm kind of struck by how it sort of puts its finger on an anxiety that I certainly feel, and I think many of my students feel as well. This kind of, it's hard to put in words, but it's a weightlessness. It's a shifting of our landscape. It's being pulled in different directions. And when I think about that, and I think about how much has changed in the last few years, largely driven by AI. Now, I'm trained as a historian, so I often try to take a big picture view of changes to society and to culture. And clearly there have been epic changing moments throughout history. There have been wars and recessions, and capitalism by its very nature is creatively destructive, right? So it's always replacing itself, always consuming itself with something new. So there is always this kind of sense about a shifting landscape, but there's something seems a bit different about it. The mood, which I guess I could characterize as anxiety, which I don't mean to, that's a kind of a dark word, but I'm not sure I have a better one. Perhaps all of you do online. But then I think about this list of job titles that I've got here below. Chief Remote Officer, Chief Impact Officer, Chief Experience Officer, Chief Sustainability Officer, Chief AI Officer, Chief Data Analytics Officer, Chief Algorithm Officer. These didn't exist a few months ago. So I'm hoping that all of you, but particularly the two students I've got with me, can help unpack a little bit about this feeling. How are they seeing this shifting landscape, the mood, whether you want to characterize it as uncertainty. Um, so let's just start there. Let's start with a big picture about Drew, from your perspective. So you're a creative. It's certainly the music industry, like, wow, okay, that's one. You worked at Pandora. And I think about an industry that's been so radically reshaped by technology, and it is a massive industry. So tell us, how, does all this kind of resonate with you? How do you feel about this? What this sort of image that I'm trying to tee up for everybody?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Peter. And I think a quote that I really like from a colleague, a woman who runs the Motion Picture Association of America, said recently that I really like. Everyone's really anxious and freaked out about AI, but no one's really sure what to be freaked out about. So I think you sum up your slide summed up a lot of the kind of non-specified anxiety around the change. And the story of business is the story of technology. And in the music industry, we've seen more disruption than most in my last 20 plus years in the industry. But you're absolutely right that there's a lot of evolution, and a lot of this is driven by these new emerging tech, and it's important to stay on top of it. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to come to the program. I spent my entire career in not only just in the music industry, but on the creative side of the music industry. I was a professional musician. I was signed to Atlantic Records. I toured, I recorded. I ran the talent scouting division at Sony Music. I was a producer. I was spent most of my professional life in studios or in concert venues. And even in those roles, it's not enough to stay in the kind of what I consider to be the humanities side of the industry. Now that I'm involved in investing, I have a fund, I've written a textbook about music and AI, and I'm teaching. I needed more left brain skills because you can't separate any creative industry from the data analytics, the kind of linear thinking, the need to understand corporate finance at some level. And that's why I decided to come to the program. But this program is for a year. It's going to end, but at that point, like the education process and the evolution doesn't stop.
I don't know if any of you are familiar with the book. It's been out now a good 15 years at least. It's called A Whole New Mind, written by author Daniel Pink. And he wrote a precursor. It was a Harvard Business Review article called The MFA is the New MBA. And it's a little bit dated, but his approach is that kind of what you summed up, Drew, that with is it about skilling? Is it about deepening my skills? Or is it about taking the skills that I have and applying them broadly into areas that are just emerging, or helping to create new and emerging industries or verticals? So I think AI to me has really accelerated that conversation is, do I need to code anymore? Probably not, but I still need the expertise to know when Claude or Gemini or whatever is giving me some kind of hallucination. I need to still be that expert. But now I have that's why I say I'm not sure it's about anxiety, because there's enormous opportunity in the ability to take my skill and apply it more quickly, even more broadly. So let me turn to Shelley. How about you? How do you see this sort of shifting landscape, however you want to define that, in the banking world and consumer banking, in the economy? What's your mood?
Yeah, I'm in the finance sector, and for the past few years, I think I've seen firsthand that this sector has undergone a seismic shift from being traditional legacy-based, models we are moving to, and this happened about 20 or so years back when we moved to digital first, and then came cloud first, and then it was all about customer-centric approach. And now in the past few years, things are moving at breakneck speed with, fintechs coming in and then AI and machine learning and all that good stuff. And I believe that this is not just finance, a trend that we are seeing in finance. It's like tech is reshaping the entire economy. It's moved from being a good to have to becoming a non-negotiable. And as a leader or a decision maker or even an influencer when it comes to, being the role that people play in as a stakeholder in their organizations. It's important that you're not just aware of these tech trends, but you're slightly ahead of that curve in order to, make an informed decision. And understanding how to leverage tech in a way that directly impacts not just your top line, but also your bottom line, I believe is incredibly important. Just so you know, you're not chasing fads. You're not, applying
Mm.
AI for the sake of applying AI. And my day to day, I'm seeing that tech is now the backbone of every major initiative that we have at the bank, not just our brand, but our peer sector too. Like every big ticket budgeting decision kind of ties back to how do we leverage tech to be like more optimized, to, do more with fewer hands on deck or with lesser amount of budget. So tech's just everywhere. And uh, and with that premise, I believe, a couple of years back when I was trying to think about what my next move's going to be, what that next chapter in my professional life's going to be. I mean, I thought that this is going to be the right time for me to invest time, money, and energy into building a solid foundation so that I can future-proof my career and my interests. Because I mean, market is what it is. Economy is what it is. Sometimes pandemic happens. Sometimes there's a family situation that comes up, and uh, given what have you, there are some things which are foundational that don't change. So, no matter where you are in in your career journey, there are certain learnings which are absolutely must-haves, like financial management, financial strategy. And those were, by the way, two of my absolute favorite courses so far in the program. These are evergreen skills to have. So are communication skills and leadership skills. Whether you're managing an organization or a department or a product, these are the key skills um, that you would need, especially if you're planning to leapfrog to the next level. And for instance, we have an inventor in our cohort who designed and developed a product, took it to market, and now that she's planning on scaling it up, she's here in our program because she wants to know how to run a business, how to, do the manage the finance side of running a business. And then we have people from the military background who are learning business skills to be able to make that transition into workforce when they retire, or as they're getting ready for the next chapter. They're learning like tools like Tableau and visualizations and how to build a business case, how to read a 10K, those kind of skills that you need in your professional life on a almost day-to-day basis. And then we have people who are like running their own companies, like, and they are loving courses like innovation and entrepreneurial thinking. I think with all that, where I'm going is that there are certain things that are foundational and evergreen that just do not go away. And while the market and the economy is like what it is, this some of us who are using this time to just be heads down, build our skill set so that whenever, things take a turn for the better, we are ready to, make that leapfrog jump.
You summarized very well without saying it, the kind of three pillars of the MTL program. So it's the intersection of leadership, business, and strategy. So when I think about this kind of mood of uncertainty, in my mind, yes, it's skills that help ground us, but it's strategy that helps us get us out of the fog, right? That you can separate the signal from the noise. And a lot of our courses all have strategy kind of built into them. I want to pivot for a moment, and I'm going to stick with Shelley, and then we're going to go to Drew with the same question. If you could talk about your critical challenge project, because I think it's the one course that so directly connects the resources in your study at Brown to your day lives, to your jobs and your careers. I mean, many of the courses you can apply what you're learning, like Shelley just said, whether it's Tableau or something in data analytics or persuasive communication, you're applying that day, you're learning those skills. But the Critical Challenge Project is a project that the students all come with. They create their own. We take them through a kind of a process. It's led by our academic director. So Shelley, to the extent that you can, a lot of students work on proprietary things that are related to their company. Um, but can you share with us a little bit about what your project is about? Because it sounds like you're about to graduate, you're about to finish the program, but it sounds like you're going to really be staying with this CCP at JP Morgan. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. I plan to leverage every bit of effort that I'm putting into my capstone, and I believe that the capstone project, the thesis that we are working on, that is going to make the ROI of this overall program super tangible. At least for me, I recall for my thesis, and we were talking about this, Peter, right before this seminar, that and Larissa is my mentor, who's also, whose brainchild this is, the capstone. So I had my first meeting with Larissa, and I was like prepared with a proposal, ready to make my pitch. And if she didn't like it, I had a plan B and a plan C, and I was like ready to go, go, go. And then the very first question that she asked me was, Shelley, what's your goal? What is your vision? What is it that you want to do as your, what's that next chapter for you going to look like? And I jumped into my topic, and then she kind of reeled me back and said, no, this is for you. What is it that you want to achieve in your professional life? And and that just gave me a pause, because I was just thinking of this thing as like a submission, as the next item that I need to do as part of the course curriculum. But then she kind of set the groundwork with the premise that this thesis, the biggest outcome of this is going to be to launch you to that Shelley 2.0. What is it that you want to be the biggest outcome of the program? And that is something which has kind of stayed with me, because I'm at JP Morgan, and this is a huge brand. It's a super successful brand, but at the same time, it's a huge, huge brand. By that, what I mean is that at any given point in time, there are like 100 other people who are doing exactly what I'm doing, who are doing, incredible stuff. So sometimes getting that visibility, getting ahead of that steer go becomes a challenge.
Mm.
And that is something which I'm using my capstone for. So for context, I'm building a playbook for merger integrations, which is specifically useful to brands like JP Morgan, which have traditionally grown inorganically. So every time we make a major big ticket acquisition, so that we are not starting from scratch, and our day one is not actually day one. We do like prep work and groundwork way ahead, so that on day one of that integration, we are ready to hit the ground running. And that is the premise of my capstone. So that at the end of the day, I'm trying to build something which is brand agnostic, industry agnostic, something that I can take to my CXOs and say that let's leverage this to make our future integrations more effective, so that we realize a synergy number way ahead of our target. And while I'm doing that, I am reaching out to the stakeholders within the company. These are the CXOs of our lines of businesses. So, the CEO of wealth management, CEO of investment banking. These are the people that I'm reaching out to get input as what their experience has been so far with the integrations that are going on right now, with the integrations that we have done in the past, and what their plan is as a lessons learned for the upcoming integrations, because we are always going to be growing that way. But just for context, like if I were to get like 15 minutes or 30-minute time slot on my CXO's calendar, it typically takes me about half a month to do that. But right now for my capstone, I submit my outline as part of, my pitch. I wave my brown flag, and I'm getting so much time and attention from the execs, because there's this genuine interest in what is it that I'm doing. They see the value that a brown student is bringing to the table. And I mean, I'm only about halfway done through my thesis, but with that, I know about half a dozen CXOs within the company. They know me. They have seen my work. So a few months down the line, if I were to make a lateral move, and that is something which is which is encouraged at our brand to, kind of not lose talent. If you want to do something different, the brand is big
Yeah.
enough to, accommodate your interests. I have that ready network. So
That's great. And
it,
I think your CCP, it's indicative of a lot of CCPs that students have, though. They choose a company problem. As you're hearing from Shelley, it's a lot more visibility in your career because you've socialized this, up the chain of command. Many students will choose a high risk, high reward. So, a company will say that, okay, that's this JP Morgan, here's a problem. We've always wanted to address it. It's in the parking lot. And if you can use the resources of an Ivy League school to do it, let's see what you come up with. We're going to pivot now. And Drew, what are you up to on your critical challenge project?
Yeah, in a lot of ways, the complete opposite of Shelley, where I work for a company of one. I work for myself, and I
Yep.
have worked for, I've worked for companies that are not the JP Morgan size, but I've worked for multinational companies before. But, I've been working on my own. When I started the program, I had an idea of what my CCP was going to be, and I've completely pivoted. And I've pivoted for a couple of reasons. Number one, the kind of things I'm working on right now were not on my radar when I decided to come to the program. I think having a venture fund and being an investor was like couldn't have been further from my mind last fall when I decided to come.
Hmm.
Number two, it's applying what I've learned throughout the program, and not only what I've learned in the classroom, but I think one of the enduring joys of this program is the people that we meet and how well we get to know each other and how much we're influenced by each other in our work, which for someone like me who has been in a very insular business, I really don't think I'd ever even met anyone in the military in my entire life. And I certainly, have some, friends or family or whatever that work in consulting or in banking, but never really at this level been able to get to know them and work with them. So after applying the lessons of things like strategic thinking and strategic planning, the class that you taught, and corporate finance and design thinking and psychology of decision making, my CCP is it's a research project on why music tech investment historically has been a very poor return, as opposed to things like med tech, biotech, fintech. It's directly related to my work now. I started a music tech investment fund earlier this year. We raised a little bit of money for a pilot fund. We've made 9 investments in our portfolio, and myself and my partners are raising a second fund starting in February. If we're going to do that in this tough climate with a sector of the economy that has not typically been seen as a good bet for investors, I need all the ammo I can get. And the CCP is directly going to inform not only how I can approach sources of capital for raises, but also how we're going to change our investment thesis and make decisions on investment. And no one's ever done anything like this before. So it's in a lot of ways, this is the first kind of research report ever in this world. And I'm really, I have some ideas, but I'm really curious to see how I can learn more, applying the frameworks that we're learning and coming up with some like really strong information at the end of it.
We often see, I think CCPs tend to take one of three kind of flavors. There's what I'll call entrepreneurial, which both of you are exhibiting, clearly. One is being entrepreneurial within a large corporate structure, like Shelley. And then there's Drew, who's, greenfield entrepreneurial, creating a new fund. And both of you have mentioned one of your colleagues who's got her own startup. We see projects like that. We see projects from students, I think, that are very technically minded. They're STEM professionals. They have backgrounds in science or math or engineering, and they're working on what I'll call process improvement. This could be, and again, this could be the integration of AI into systems or connecting systems to optimize them. And then the third type are people that want to really become the expert in that thing. So the thought leader. And often see that amongst people that are making a career change. So they want to change companies, they want to change industries. Maybe they're transitioning out of the military and they've got their eyes set in a new corporate world. So how do you advocate for yourself that you are an expert in that area? CCP is, you have a substantial body of work that demonstrates that you've done that. Let's take a slight let's hear from our audience. Let's see. I mean, we've got my two luminaries here. What questions can the audience do you have directly for our students? Emma?
So it looks like our first question that came in is asking about the course load. So if you have any insights on the course load as a student, especially with balancing that and working full time.
Yeah, that's the courses are designed to be about 90 hours per class. And I think of it as kind of, Peter, correct me if this isn't the way that you design the program, but I think of it as kind of three trimesters
Mhm.
where we had the spring, we had the summer, and then we had the fall. The fall is a little lighter because we are working on our CCP. The summer is a little lighter because it's the summer, and then the kind of the spring session is probably the was the most challenging. And it really depends on your fluencies, right? So I did pretty well with psychology of decision making. My undergraduate degree is in psychology.
Mm.
I had a lot of trouble with the corporate finance class. I do not have a background in it. Shelley does. Shelley was my coach through that class. So it really depends on how much time you have to put into the class. But I think also one of the tenets that I was taught when I started this is you really get out of it what you put into it. And that is really true. I mean, this class is here for you to learn. Education is voluntary. So the more you want to learn, the more that it's really on your shoulders. But I'd say it's just time management is a skill worth learning. And if you don't have it already, you will once you go to do this program.
That's so well said. I often use the metaphor that the MTL curriculum, the workload is a swimming pool. There's a deep end and a shallow end. So because of the diversity of the curriculum and on the students come from all these different backgrounds, for Shelley, sure, the finance class, probably more of a refresher. Drew, maybe Shelley was throwing you the life preserver when you were doing finance because it was the deep end for you. So I think that's a very, very good way to look at the curriculum. And some things you're just going to find out of the 15 courses, there's going to be a few that you just fall in love with and you're going to dig down deep and put all your energy into it. Shelley, anything to add?
Uh, Sure, just backing on what Drew has already mentioned, that time management's critical, but and it's like 15 courses packed into a year, so it is intense. But if you are considering a program of this caliber, a school of this pedigree, you should expect and want rigor because, I mean, if it's easy breezy, I'd be concerned. So, I mean, I wasn't surprised with the workload or the time that it takes. But at the same time, what I really love about the curriculum is that it's curated in a way that it touches upon every aspect of leadership. It's like truly for someone like me, it's prepping me for that next big ticket role. And I love that aspect. You have like you could be from finance or healthcare or inventing the next big thing. The program is brand agnostic, it's industry agnostic, it's designed for impact. And one of the things which I believe is not always highlighted is that beyond the classroom and beyond what is there in the curriculum, you also get um, a boatload of coaching. Like in the first semester, we had our career coaches who were assigned to us with like multiple one-on-one sessions, and they help you strategize your next big move, or if you are already in a good place, then how can you increase your impact being where you are. So that was incredibly helpful. Then we in this semester we have our communication coaches. Again, these are like one-on-one communication sessions where you put a recording in place, and there's someone who's like almost an industry expert who looks at it and kind of gives you feedback on what is it that you're doing great, what is it that you can improve on. So that to someone like me was incredibly helpful. And then as a grad student, you also get access to like seminars and fireside chats. I think it was a few months back that we had the Uber CEO come in,
Mhm.
Dara.
Great.
I can
Yep.
never say his last name, but he had come in for a chat, and he's also an alumni. So that was great. And then throughout the course, we get those real world, real company, problem statement. For instance, for climate strategy, and Drew and I were on the same team for climate strategy. We were putting together like problem statements that real world big brands are struggling with, and the company that was assigned to us was Google. And climate strategy is not something that any one of us, it was a team of 5 that we had any background in. So we put together a problem statement, which was about contrails. Those are, the white, fluffy, cloud-like things that you see in the sky, like as a right behind
Floodplain,
an
yeah.
aeroplane. Thank you. But it looks cute and pretty harmless, but we figured out that those contrails, which is short for condensation trails, actually contributes to about 30+% of global warming that the entire um, sector is responsible for. So that was a big ticket problem, and it's companies like Google, who are like masters in the AI space and in the cloud technology space, that are tackling that problem. So we put together a pitch, and then we had our first session with Professor Porter to see if we are on the right track. And he's like, "Oh yeah, so last week when I was chatting with Kate, she mentioned something like that." And we are like, "Wait, do you mean Kate Brand, the chief sustainability officer at Google?" And he was like, "Yeah, so I have these, one-on-ones with her, and you know that she's an alumni of Brown." And we are like, "Wait, what?"
Hmm.
So, those kind of conversations, those kind of, that getting that direct feedback from what we are doing here as part of this curriculum is also resonating with what the larger industry is doing. That was a cool insight.
A good one. All right, thanks. Emma, another question?
Yes, so we have another question that just popped into the Q&A, and I'm going to do a call for any last minute questions as well. What are some of the most impactful learning moments or debates you've had in the cohort other than the CCP?
All right, go
I,
back to Drew.
I can't say enough about the people, not only the professors. I've been involved in academia a lot. I've taught at NYU, Syracuse. I've done guest lecturing at Northeastern. A lot of those programs are fine, and they're even really good. But we're doing a visualization of data class right now with literally the person who was the data visualization person for 538 in the New York Times. So someone who's been a fan of their work for a long time. The professors are super legit in their fields, and it's not just I'm a professor at Berklee College of Music. Berkeley's great, but the music industry isn't exactly a hotbed in Boston. So
Hmm.
it not to speak disparaging about my program, but it's a lot of like, who can we get to come to Boston? But we don't have that problem at Brown. Everyone is like legit. And then it's also the cohort that you're with. We have a really great community. One of the things I'm most surprised by is how well we've gotten to know each other. I figured it's a mostly remote program. We're going to be in person twice for 8 days total. How much are we really going to get to kind of interface? We know each other very well, and especially the cohort that I'm in. And the network has been really helpful, not only for me personally, but also professionally. So the question around what is some of the impactful learning moments, I mean, it's continual. It's inside the classroom, it's outside the classroom, it's on our Slack, it's on our WhatsApp group, it's from cohorts past that we've been connected to, it's from cohorts we're in now. And I know that once we graduate, we're going to all stay in touch, and it'll continue.
You will. I get routinely, especially around the holidays, pop-up dinners in DC, New York, West Coast. There'll be 6 MTL students just get a table at a restaurant, and you will be attending each other's life events. You do bond. You'll be part of almost 400 MTL alumni, and of course the 100,000 Brown alumni around the world. Shelley, how about over to you? Impactful, memorable moments?
Oh, one of the things that as I was doing my research into, which school I want to, do my master's in and what program would work the best, I was looking at like essentially a couple of things. One was that I was looking for a STEM-based program because I have a head for numbers. So I was looking for something which is like grounded in STEM, and MTL program is designed in partnership with the Brown School of Engineering. So you can't get better than that. Nerd alert. But in comparison to a few other schools and programs that I looked at, they appear to be more general management, which again, circling back to, how the economy is doing right now and how the market is and the trends that we are seeing, I did not want a general management. I wanted something which is like truly focused into, what my career path has been and where I want to take it next. I mean, I'm in Chicago. Booth is like 30 minutes away from where I work, and Kellogg's like 30 minutes away from where I live. But when I looked at the programs, what I did not find was, in comparison to the program at Brown, is that strong leadership focus, how to drive that buy-in, how to evaluate the financial impact from, how to put that CXO hat on. That was sort of missing or not at par with what we have here. So that was great. And the third item was the personal fit, which is I'm a type A personality. I'm a super communicator. So any program which had a big online component in it was like totally right off the bat. I just, totally discounted that, because even though this program's hybrid, I'd like to stress that none of our classes are recorded sessions. Like all our online classes are synchronous sessions where you have the professor join in, the TAs join in, and your cohort join in. So that's like a back and forth, continuous feedback, real-time feedback that you are getting. I mean, one of the biggest takeaways is from a program like this is the network that you build. And I can tell you, in my career journey so far, all the job changes and the pivots that I've had so far have been through the network that I've built through undergrad and grad. So, and also you can't build a network with a recording or an email ID. So it's
Very true.
great that we have like residential sessions where we get to, meet and spend time in person, and also that the actual learning, the immersive experience that we have, those are all real time, where you're talking to an actual person and not to a recording. So that I believe is great. It's truly immersive. It's in terms of the course content, it's exactly what I was looking for. So I'm like incredibly happy with the takeaway from the program.
Emma, maybe one more question, and then we'll
Yeah,
wrap up.
so we have actually one more in the queue, and it is, what is one thing you wish you had known when you were applying to the program?
Oh, what a great question to wrap up. So let's tee that one up, and then we'll do one at a time. Any other last words for the audience? So
I would say
Drew.
the classes is kind of what I would expect. The two things I wish I would have known is, number one, the in-person. I grew up about 25 minutes north of Providence, and my parents still live there, so I was staying there during the first in-session session. I would say I wish I would have known to stay at a hotel, because we did so much, and I didn't want to. I was taking Ubers back and forth between Northern Rhode Island. The other thing I wish I'd known is where the Brown bar is, the Graduate Center bar, rather, because me and a bunch of our cohorts spent 20 minutes wandering around Providence trying to find it. It's down this little hallway, but Brown has its own Graduate Center lounge, kind of pool area, hall bar, and I think it's one of my favorite bars in the entire world, and it's just for graduate students. And we've done a lot of bonding there. We've done a lot of kind of debriefing on classes and just getting to know each other there. So I'll leave it at that.
We're not going to say where that is, because as a student like Drew, you need to get to know the campus and find it for
Yes.
yourself.
Uh-huh.
All right, Shelley, last words.
Or tag along with me and my friends. We call it the Ivy Divey.
Yeah, it is.
That's a great description.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, during the residency sessions right after the classes, that's where we live.
Yeah.
But it's exactly what Drew said. I mean, the biggest takeaway is the people and the kind of genuine feedback that you get from the professors, the staff, and also the cohort members. One of the things that I did not realize, which was a happy surprise, was that our cohorts are designed to be, kind of a rolling off schedule. So we got to take our first 2 semesters with with the cohort that came before us, the ones who joined in fall. We are the spring cohort. So we had an overlap with the previous cohort, and for the last semester that we have in the program, we are taking that with a cohort that is right after ours. So it just, kind of expands your network, which is great. And the 2 residency sessions, one of the things that I believe, Peter, you keep getting the same feedback from most of us is that we need more of those residency.
We're working on it. We're
It's,
working on it.
it's just so great to meet everyone in person, and then we have these happy hours and dinners with the faculty, and it's not just the faculty who you are interacting with in that semester. Everyone who's in town shows up, which is just incredible. I love it.
Well, thank you very much, Drew and Shelley and Emma, for joining us today, giving us your really, I think you're just very open-hearted and your warm embrace of Brown and your honesty about the program. All of you online, thank you very much for joining us. You can, if you want to talk to me, you can book a time with me on our website. You can also contact professional@brown.edu and talk to a couple of my colleagues who can also answer any questions about the program. Till then, thank you all very much. Take care. Be safe.